One big concern is how the transition will impact the affordability of everyday goods like food, energy bills, and transport. For the past few years, cost of living has noticeably increased across the world. From the state of New York to countries like Nigeria and Senegal, leaders are citing affordability as a reason to continue investing in fossil fuels. Even when sustainable options like renewables are cheaper and more reliable in the long run, they may have upfront costs that are sometimes difficult to manage today. When we talk about affordability, energy is often at the center of the discussion. But it is relatively a small percentage of families' expense. It is usually considered part of the housing. Housing itself is often the largest household expense. Housing is arguably the biggest affordability crisis, though it looks different across the world. If you look at the map behind me, in low-income countries, many poor people end up living in informal housing, represented by the darker shaded areas. 2.8 billion people, 1 in 3 people living globally, live in substandard housing. Many of these individuals are part of the informal economy, and their homes are also their workplaces. In richer countries with stricter housing laws, informal housing is often not the problem. It is high housing costs and significant homelessness. In richer countries, housing prices are increasing far faster than people's wages. We don't usually connect housing to climate, but buildings account for 40% of global emission. In China, buildings account for 48% of energy-related emissions, half in building materials, half in heating and cooling. Housing is not just a matter of emissions. Climate impacts like floods, fires, and storms significantly affect families depending on the location and the condition of their homes. For example, climate risk is driving insurance prices up, even in the richest country in the world. 15 to 20% of homeowners in hurricane-prone Florida forego insurance. Globally, climate change threatens housing that is already inadequate and unaffordable for many people. Let's talk to Enrique Evers in Brazil, where they're taking a systematic approach to closing the gap.
Hello from Porto Alegre, Brazil. 2 years ago, the place where I'm standing was completely submerged. Devastating floods affected more than 2 million people in this part of the country and forced 80,000 into shelters. Today, as the region strives to build back better, the lingering gap of secure housing has been highlighted as a key issue. When people can't afford to live in formal, urbanized areas, they are pushed far from city services or into risk-prone areas like this one. This means long commutes, lower access to jobs, and greater exposure to threats. People without decent housing are the most vulnerable to climate change. Across Brazil, more than 16 million people live in favelas and comunidades, which are often informal settlements without land tenure or essential services. This isn't new, but climate change is making it worse. In Brazil, the federal government launched Periferia Viva, a program supporting cities and states to invest in and upgrade more than 50 vulnerable neighborhoods. The program is based on the principle of building with the communities, co-creating solutions and connecting public policies and investments to everyday life. Local offices and guidelines enable local participation and consistency nationwide to help neighborhoods address the most pressing challenges to them. This approach has shown success in the past. In social housing communities in Recife and Teresina, in northeastern Brazil, urban coalitions brought together the city hall, civil society, and residents to co-create greener neighborhoods, as well as leisure and work opportunities. Periferia Viva seeks to scale up this type of participatory planning. Through this program, Brazil is aligning efforts to fight poverty with an integrated approach to resilient housing, urban services, social inclusion, and climate justice. The government has created an innovative network connecting cities and communities to share knowledge and solutions and accelerate change across Brazil. In every part of the world, governments need to ensure everyone has access to decent and climate-resilient housing in neighborhoods that offer services and jobs. Here in Brazil, the solution isn't building new homes somewhere else. It is upgrading the place where people already live with direct and active contributions from the community. As climate impacts intensify, ensuring access to resilient housing services and jobs is more critical than ever. Brazil is showing how national governments, cities, and communities can move faster towards that goal, starting now. That's why housing is at the center of affordability, one of WRI's stories to watch for 2026.
That was Enrique in Porto Alegre. Brazil is not just building higher quality, more affordable housing, but doing it in a participatory way that makes neighborhoods more livable, keeps costs down, and increases climate resilience. UN Habitat says the world needs to build 96,000 affordable homes a day by 2030 to house everyone. The way we build not only matters immensely for people and climate in places like Porto Alegre, but also in Washington, D.C., where I live. Housing in D.C. is expensive, but prices haven't climbed as sharply as cities like New York or Boston. One possible reason is an increase of supply of residential units. Since the new metro station opened in 2004, the Noma neighborhood near our office has undergone a remarkable transformation. From an industrial zone of warehouses and vacant factories to thousands of residential units, bustling restaurants, offices, and grocery stores. By building dense neighborhoods near public transport, residents spend less money commuting and emit less carbon. In the US, transport is often the second highest household expense after housing. Globally, it is 15% of emissions. Addressing affordability requires looking at the entire system of costs. So, what should we watch for? It may be more costly upfront to build energy-efficient and climate-resilient housing, but it helps families and governments save money in the long run. This May, the global housing crisis will be the focus of the World Urban Forum in Baku, one of the largest gatherings of urban leaders. Will housing, one of our biggest affordability problems, also be understood as a climate challenge? Let's talk about energy now. Across Africa, 600 million people still lack dependable access to electricity, despite abundant solar potential. As you can see behind me, solar prices have dropped exponentially in the last decade, and adoption is reaching tipping points in countries like Pakistan and South Africa, where it is an alternative to grid electricity. Houses and local businesses are now choosing renewables because they're cheaper, not necessarily because of government intervention. As prices continue to drop, will cheap renewable reach a tipping point in more countries? Energy demand is rising across the world, thanks to trends like increasing electrification, cooling, and economic growth. In South Asia, hotter temperature and higher incomes are expected to increase the number of air conditioner units from 40 million in 2017 to 300 million in 2040, half of it in Indonesia. Growing energy demand in some countries is already impacting electricity bills. In the US, household electricity prices have already increased faster than the inflation in the last several years. And the rapid expansion of AI and data center is expected to put increasing pressure on the electricity system and prices. How will countries meet rising energy demand affordably? And how much will it be from renewables and other low-carbon sources? Trade was a hot topic in 2025 and will likely continue to be an important focus as US trade policies create uncertainty. Last year, countries agreed to discuss trade at the UN climate negotiation for the first time. On January 1st, the EU Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, went into effect. Some see this as encouraging more sustainable practices and low-carbon technologies. Others see this as unfair and unilateral trade restrictions. How will CBAM impact economies that are major exporters to Europe, like China and Turkey? Will new trade rules encourage or stifle green growth? Addressing the affordability and climate crises at the same time is not only possible, but a deliberate choice that can drastically improve people's lives around the world.